Welcome to Franchise Spotlight, where we showcase unique franchise opportunities that give you the chance to build wealth, create a legacy, and take greater control of your future. Today, we're exploring Floor Coverings International, a franchise that has reinvented how flooring is sold by bringing a curated mobile showroom directly to the customer's home. Floor Coverings International competes in a $116 billion industry where the market is still largely fragmented and locally owned businesses have a genuine opportunity to dominate. Let's put the spotlight on Floor Coverings International. Well, my guest today is Albert Hermans, who's the Chief Development Officer of Floor Coverings International. Albert started at FCI in 2015 on the operations team. He was working directly with franchisees to build their business. And then in 2020, he moved into franchise development. So he's got this unique perspective of helping people both before and after they become FCI owners. Albert, welcome to my show.
Scott, it's a pleasure. There's no place I'd rather be, and certainly I'm happy that I'm not in line in an airport somewhere right now. So it's good to be here.
Fantastic. Good. Well, let's dive right in, Albert. When we think about most people, when they think about buying flooring, right, they think about this trip to a big box store, maybe a warehouse full of carpet samples, salespeople who may or may not know anything about flooring. FCI, right, you're taking a fundamentally different approach to the whole transaction. Could you walk us through who your typical customer is and the experience that Floor Coverings International is delivering for customers?
We've taken an industry and a business, the flooring industry, the flooring business, that's been around for as long as we've walked on things, right? Forever, right?
That's right.
Every time you build a house or add an addition, or if there's a fire or a flood, or if you just move in, my wife and I are moving, there are floors that have to get done. So this industry that's huge and it's been around forever. And what we've done is we've just brought everything as it relates to the model way closer to the customer. So what I mean by that, and to answer your question, our core consumer, believe it or not, and actually, again, makes sense logically, but at first you might go, oh, interesting, is the female homeowner, right?
Okay.
Like neither you or I, Scott, demographically is the core consumer in the flooring industry. Our core consumer is the same as Sephora, the cosmetics store.
Oh, yeah.
Upper middle class female. That's who buys our goods and services. And what we do in our model, like I mentioned a moment ago, is we bring everything closer to that consumer. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's even start from the fact that de facto our business model is franchised. So local community, local ownership. All right. Our owners that have local ownership will run into their customers, the supermarket. These box stores or whatever else don't have that dynamic to start with. The second way we get closer to the consumer is via our shopping experience. So you're right. Traditionally, the flooring industry is retail-based, brick and mortar, going in and out of showrooms, different employees, whether they're well-trained or not. Those are all questions that are questions. Local business, and either the franchise owner themselves or a salesperson on their team that they have developed and trained that goes to Mrs. Jones's house. So that she can shop in the lighting of her own home, next to the furniture, next to the wall colorings, get an idea about perspective and lighting, which is way different in the home than it is in the store. But then also the thing that our teams are able to see because, by virtue and de facto of being closer to the consumer in their home is there's 2 German Shepherds. There's a sliding glass door that goes to a pool, right? All the things that actually matter when it comes time to figuring out what's best for the application.
Interesting.
The person in the box store or in the retail store has no clue. They're just pushing inventory on the customer. So in all respects, again, we get way closer to the consumer.
So you described this in-home experience, and it really sounds like it's definitely more than just a convenience play for the consumer, right? So expand a little bit maybe on why does that give franchisees a real competitive advantage over the more traditional alternatives?
So that there's a couple of metrics. They say men lie and women lie, but numbers don't. So let's okay. Not be anecdotal. Let's go right to the numbers. So first and foremost, our conversion ratios. So a competitive advantage of being in the home is that we're able to, at point of sale, at the kind of the time where the customer's excitement is the highest, we're able to show them the price, ask for
Mhm.
the sale, and try to see if we can get a signature so that we can get the materials ordered and the job into production as quick as possible. So our conversion metrics are higher than a
Okay.
retail store. Secondly, go right to metrics, our average ticket or average job size is higher, because when you're able to be in the home and either intentionally expand scope of the project or just by virtue of really being cognizant of the needs of the customer and saying, hey, you do have the 6 and the 4-year-old and the dog that's now 9 years old. Maybe we shouldn't go with something that's maybe builder's grade. We should be going with something that's a little more stain resistant or upholds to wear and tear better. So by
Mhm.
tailoring the solution to the customer's needs, it tends to mean a better quality of product. And then the last thing that lends itself to the higher ticket is we're going to price into the job the things that most companies don't, but the customer then pays for anyway down the road. So
Mm.
examples. Number one would be if you're doing carpet pad. Generally, companies kind of initially quote in the most cheapest builder's grade stuff, and then when the customer gets to researching, they're saying, "Oh no, I don't really want that."
Mm.
Furniture moving. When you have to do floors, you have to move the furniture out of the room. Customers generally don't want to do that on their own, and companies won't generally quote that initially. They'll charge afterwards. And then
Okay.
even the if you think about when you're doing a flooring job, the different moving parts around hauling away of the materials because they have to leave the house, right? Those are things that again companies charge for afterwards, or even doing a flooring job. The baseboards just got done; they now need to be painted. Initially, other companies won't account for all the components of getting a flooring
Mhm.
project done. So our our model lends itself from the strategic advantage perspective to higher conversion ratios, higher average ticket. Those are why. But also another measurable thing, higher net promoter score. So our
Mhm.
customers love it so much more. And if we want to get into net promoter score, Scott, certainly we can. But we're the highest rated in the industry.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Net Promoter Score, especially for FCI because of who owns you and who sits on the board. Your
That's right.
first service brand, right? Your first
That's
service
correct.
brand?
Yep.
Yeah, so the 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 guy who created Net Promoter Score is on the board of FCI or of First Service. And my understanding is the first service brand companies, yourself and some of the others, have third party administration of these. You're not gaming these. You can't. You don't have control over the net promoter score. When I see NPS scores as high as yours, I immediately wonder who's gaming the system. But you don't. You can't because it's all done independently with the guy who invented NPS, kind of watching over it, make sure it's good. I love it. I think
Totally.
it's terrific. Yeah,
Totally, yes. It's like,
beautiful.
to your point, you can't game it. It's like, you might not wanna step on the scale to see how much the weekend, ruined your diet, but, by virtue of having a third party tell you what your customers think about you, it's the brutal facts. And our scores are really good.
So, this is not a business where you're looking for an owner with a background in flooring or construction to predict their
Correct.
success, right? Um, Seems like the profile of an ideal FCI owner has more to do with how they lead, how they show up in their community, perhaps, than what they know about, hardwood versus, luxury vinyl plank or whatever it is that, whatever details they need to know. So when you look across your franchisee base at the people who have the strongest businesses being built, what are the traits they're sharing? And I think maybe equally important is if you could work into it, are there traits you look for that's like, this is not the right fit? This type of person would not be a great fit for FCI.
Absolutely, and I just wanna reinforce a point that you just made. Next to 0% of our franchise owners have prior flooring experience. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, I think so most folks that get into our franchise, like, they know nothing about flooring. They never did anything with the trades or anything like that. And it's an important anecdote because some people think they need to, number one. And then number two, like, it's also a benefit because you can't teach old dogs new tricks, right? Or at least it's
Sure.
very hard
Mhm.
to.
It's
And
harder. Yeah.
and the where I would draw a delineation into that is we can teach flooring. To me, that's not new tricks. That's
Hmm.
new information, new data, new knowledge. That's new knowledge.
Hmm.
You can teach knowledge to someone who's already established in their career. What it's really hard, if not impossible, to really teach. And to answer your question, is our skill sets.
Hmm.
Right? Kind of at this point, you and I, as grown adults, established in our careers, like our skill sets
Yeah.
are our skill sets, and we could try our best to redefine and learn some new things. But where we're best suited has already been defined for the most part in the workplace.
Hmm.
And so, for what we're looking for, is certainly not flooring or construction knowledge. It'd be skill set based. So, leadership skills. They they've hired and fired before. People say that, hey, that person, meaning our franchise owner, good fit, was a great boss. If they talk about some
Okay.
of their best experiences in their career, they talk about the team that they've developed and the culture that they helped build. Those are really good indicators for us. Additionally, someone that is not afraid, even though I don't know if it's a fearful thing, but like they look forward to interactions that are outbound or outward facing. So,
Hmm.
in this particular business, our customers are inside of people's homes. So we're going to people's homes. Our, a great way to generate leads is by going to networking events and building relationships with interior designers and realtors where you're out there meeting people. So this is not a
Okay.
from behind the computer business. So
Hmm.
I say that to now give you the inverse, like who's not a good fit. Somebody who's looking for more of the solopreneur type business, not wanting to have a team that they're responsible for, lead and develop talent and things of that nature. And then also someone who's maybe more comfortable behind a computer, doesn't want to be, in people's homes or on the road or developing network relationships with their local community.
Hmm.
That's neither good nor bad. It's just a matter of
Oh,
fact for
people
what we're looking for. Yeah.
preferences. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
And to your point, I like how you frame it. Skill sets, right? People are going to be good in this type of role, right? If they love people, love helping people, love meeting people, and developing, like you said, developing and training and leading. So I think that's great.
Totally.
You've been signing new franchisees at a pretty good pace lately, right? While
Yeah.
simultaneously, every time I look at your reports, you still have a lot of territories open across the country. I mean, I think it was over 700 that I saw last. So this combination, you've got this active growth alongside availability. It tells us a lot about where this brand is sitting right now. Maybe could you describe how you view the stage of growth of Floor Coverings International, and so that when a candidate's evaluating, say, their local market, what should they be paying attention to about is their market a good market for FCI?
Yeah, so there's a couple of, different points to that one question, and I'll try to hit them
There
all.
is. Yeah,
So I'd
threw
say
you a
we're
curveball there. It's
let's
good.
see if I can
Yeah.
handle it. I'll try my
Yeah,
best to
yeah.
be Aaron Judge here. So we've in our growth trajectory, it is an interesting dichotomy. I like to say we're like a late teenage brand in our development, where we've certainly can act and behave like adults, but we still have room to grow, and
Mhm,
that's fair in a few instances. So we've been around since the late '80s. We're owned by a publicly traded company. From a technological and vendor perspective, our franchise owners have more of a leg up in our brand than anywhere else. However, we've got a ton of room to grow yet in a bunch of different areas. So that's where it kind of, again, lends itself to be kind of in teenage
mhm,
years. So we've got a bit of a good mix of both worlds for a prospective
mhm,
candidate. Like right now, we're at this hockey stick moment, like the crest of a hockey stick, because all of these factors are coming together and we're adding in new franchisees at a pretty good rate. And what's starting to happen is the brand's tipping from a market share perspective, from a national advertising perspective, from a regional advertising perspective. Over the next three
mhm.
to 5 years, we will be a household name to the consumer, that when the consumer goes online and Googles, I need to replace my hardwood floors, and they see Floor Coverings International, they'll go, oh, I've heard of them before.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's really exciting about where we're at. And then, so as it relates to kind of what the average person should expect as they're investigating marketplaces for us, is they'll find that in most major metro areas we will have availability, and the anything that's available will be viable. And I'll get to viability here in a second, but what they're going to see in metro areas is we've got availability, we still got really good availability. we've got areas that either will also be occupied in a metro area. So it's not like there's a metro area that like there's just no representation. So they'll have
Mhm.
someone to draft off of as well. And then likely, or it won't be uncommon for there to also be a resale opportunity as well, because we've been around since the late 80s. So some of our more legacy owners are starting to, be at a point in time where they want to resell their business. So there's many different opportunities. And the way that I'm really confident about the fact that if there is open opportunity, it's viable, is because we will not cut a territory that is not able to support a franchise owner, a new franchise owner, to build a multi-million-dollar business. And we use a
Okay.
variety of different um, demographic tools to help us assert that. The one that's kind of most scientific is called Experian Mosaic prospect data. And essentially
Okay.
Experian, they run our credit reports. They're able to
Mhm,
tell us
mhm,
in every zip code in North America from a consumer spending profile perspective how many of our core consumers are there. And then we know how often the average US homeowner replaces floors. We know what our average ticket item is. So on any given year, when we sell a franchise on a new territory, we know that there's $50 million worth of a residential marketplace for flooring. And so
mhm.
again, if it's open, it's viable. Otherwise, we'll tell you it's not open.
Got it. Okay, no, that's very helpful. Love the data-driven approach to carving out territories and really the help that you provide franchisees. So they may be wondering, would FCI fit in my market? If they're interested and they're working with you, you'll be able to tell them if it's viable or not. So that's terrific.
100%.
Love it. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the resilience and the risks of this type of business. Flooring is a purchase that people consider pretty carefully, right? It's tied to the home equity, it's tied to life moments, buying and selling homes. To some extent, I guess the housing market activity may drive, ups and downs in flooring. Candidates who are evaluating this business want to understand how this model behaves, even when consumers are pulling back and when there's these economic or technological disruption moments, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I say resilience and risk. So how have you performed? You've been around a long time during those
Yeah.
economic downturns, and what are some of those external risks?
Yeah. So we've been around through the Great Recession. That was probably the hardest time in the last 40 years to be in the home services. We grew in the Great
Hmm.
Recession. And the reason why we're able to grow in any economic climate is because in order to build a multi-million-dollar flooring business, our franchise owners need 4% market share. Okay.
Okay.
So now the reason why I state it that way is there today in your market, there's 100% opportunity. So if there's
Hmm.
100 jobs available today, our franchise owners need to find 4 of them. So in a
Okay.
market that contracts 3 to 5%, we still only need 4% of the market, but there's still a bunch of available market for us to take, bites out of. You don't need to have 50% of available market to be considered to be a really strong player. You only need
Hmm.
4. So ultimately what you find is in this particular industry, which by the way, if you take a 40-year snapshot, the industry grows with inflation. It's 3 to 5% a year. It looks like this. There were a couple periods of time where the industry was down a little bit, but then it was up a little bit
Hmm.
more than 3 to 5%. But if you zoom out enough, um,
Hmm.
people generally view the trades in the home services as recession resilient, pretty predictable. And the reason or the things that affect the market's acceleration, or maybe where it just feels a little bit harder, would be buying patterns of the customer. So to your point before, if the real estate market is super hot and there's a lot of transactions, it's going to feel easier
Hmm.
to the franchise owner. But then in economic times where right now the real estate market's slower, like today, obviously, but people have more home equity. They know they can't buy a new house, so they're staying in place and remodeling what they have. And so it might feel to the franchise owner that their methodology of going to market is more difficult, but it's just different because all it means is they need to more focus their business in on relationships with custom builders and interior designers and realtors versus
Hmm.
having the man that's just kind of like the fish jumping in the boat. So
Right. Right.
I probably gave you a little bit more detail. This long story short here, Scott, is it's a big stable industry and you just got to be able to go capture some market share.
And that's great, and I appreciate the deeper explanation because, to your point, there's got to be a reason why it's consistently grown even through difficult times, and I think you laid that out nicely. So that's good. And I do like how there's some people who we've often heard it said in big business, strive to be number one or number two in your market. And that you don't need to strive for that here, right? You're striving to grab your share of it, and you can have a very successful franchise in your local market. So let's talk a little bit about the investment snapshot here. At
Sure.
launch, when I've learned about this business, at launch you have no showroom. It's a mobile business at launch, right? That changes the cost structure significantly compared to some retail franchise.
Correct.
But a lot of times, candidates may assume that people who are considering owning a flooring business may consider that they need a large physical footprint, right? At a high level, what does the total investment look like to get into this business, and what are the major buckets? If you don't have to have a big old showroom, what do you need to get started in this business?
So there's really three big buckets that I look at so the overall investment between 250 and $300,000 overall
Okay.
investment. Now the curious thing about the whole investment picture as I put it together is the third bucket, the third slice of the pie is the largest. So the first bucket being the franchise fee for two territories. So
Hmm.
our franchise owners start with two territories because we want to make sure they have that available marketplace to build a big business. So it's not
Hmm.
a guesswork game here. It's two territories. The second would be the hard assets. And actually, of the three buckets, this is the smallest. So the hard assets associated with opening your doors. So it would be um, office fit out and furniture, vehicle lease down payment, product samples, pop up displays for trade shows, t-shirts for their installers. So the kind of
Hmm.
the physical items, the stuff that you need to get the doors open, that's in that second
Okay.
bucket. And the
Hmm.
third bucket is the biggest one, most curious one, but I'll explain, is of that initial 250 to $300,000, we ask that franchise owners come in with $120,000 or so of liquid capital, so
Okay.
cash sitting in their business checking account on the day that they open
Hmm.
their doors, that they're going to have earmarked for marketing, customer acquisition, and just general working capital. So to go back to the statement I made before, because businesses that grow in this industry market for customer acquisition and they add people, adding staff. So we want
Hmm.
the franchise owner to be heavy on the working capital front so that throughout that first year, they've got the comfortability and the cushion to do customer acquisition and add a team. Because what we want them to do is be 365 days in business and look back in time and say, wow, I've built myself a business, meaning there are people and there are customers and there are employees versus I have a job that I just own.
Mhm, mhm. I think that's a fantastic way to look at it, and thank you for breaking that down very simply, right? So some upfront fees, of course, to start the franchise fees, and you've got your equipment and your vehicles, right? The showroom, the samples, and the being ready for trade shows and whatnot, and then the working capital, which gives you the flexibility to market and have the staff needed to get this business off the ground. So very
You got
nice,
it.
good, good. Let's talk a bit about the support and the systems that FCI provides. I know you've invested a lot in technology that goes well beyond the regular CRM systems, right? You have the in-home consultation, which you described as the heart of your sales process. And from what I understand, there are tools built specifically to support that appointment and to make that a good experience. So talk a little bit about the tools and the systems and the support infrastructure for a new franchisee, and what how does it help that make a difference to get traction early on?
So I'll just start with this ain't our first rodeo. Owned by a publicly traded company, franchising for 30 plus years. So a lot of the stuff that I'll walk you through is product of also, it's going to sound all great, but it's also a product of just constantly iterating for 30 years, and learning
Mhm,
from where you skinned your knee and getting better. We've got 30 years of that. So I'll
mhm,
start with just upfront technology. So we've got proprietary technology that takes the learning curve around measuring and estimating and that whole flooring part. Remember I said like that's not the biggest concern before, like it
mhm,
makes it just like snap of the fingers. We could train in a day someone on how to use tablet software that we have proprietary to us, literally spin around in a room with the tablet camera on, and then boom, an estimate comes out for flooring.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that stress around how do I estimate a room for flooring, like it just shortens the learning curve on that front. Then the other thing that I've realized we do way differently that is such a leg up for a franchise owner from a systems and training perspective is we realize that humans don't learn all at once. And there are so many brands that go, here's your week of training, here's your textbook, go. And in some
Mm-hmm.
instances that could work, but in a business where we're looking for franchise owners to scale and build multi-million-dollar businesses, we have to meet them where they're at. So prior to opening 5 weeks, we have a training course. The week before they grand open, we have a training course live. In between, there's a lot of work they've got to do as well. Then
Mm-hmm.
the coolest thing in my mind is 90 days in business, where if you've ever opened a business before, 90 days in is usually when you're in this moment of head spinning, what's going on, right? You're familiar
Sure.
enough with the business that you started to develop some patterns and habits, but at the same time, it's still so brand new that your head's kind of exploding. 90
Mhm.
days in, we bring them back in for a training to bring them back to the center line so that they can realize what they've done right and where they're starting to veer off center line and course correct. And what we've seen is just that magic leads to amazing first year performance. It's just 90 days in, sounds so simple, so logical, makes sense, but catapult somebody forward. And then from there, when franchise owners need the training, meaning they're at big milestone markers of their business, hiring their first salesperson, hiring their second
Mhm.
salesperson, hiring production staff, this is where we realize that that's when the training is applicable. So we're not going to train them on how to do that stuff in their first week of, before they open. We're going to make that training available to them at those milestones. And the last thing that we learn around training is for franchise owners to learn the fastest is we have them in pods always, in
Okay.
peer situations always, because we want to foster an environment where, yes, we have the systems, the training, the support, the tools. We'll teach them in a classroom. We'll teach them in passing down better practices. But for them to hear the reinforcement from their peers, they'll get to where they got to go faster. We all learn from others'
Sure.
experiences. And the last
Yeah.
thing I'll mention, Scott, is just a huge strategic advantage is in franchising, there's a bajillion painting companies because the barrier to entry into the painting business is not that big to get those buckets of paint and
Right.
lead painting crews. There's not another flooring retail franchise that I could think of where you have the ability to sell the luxury vinyl, the tile, the hardwood, the carpet, and that's because we have a great strategic advantage around the purchasing of materials. So we have
Mm.
direct to manufacturer relationships that we set up for our franchise owners so that they can have equal pricing to the box stores for the
Mm.
materials and not only have margin opportunities with their customers, but also competitively priced as well.
Yeah. No, that is excellent. So the training and support, the time in their life cycle when they'll best be able to process the training, that's when you provide it. That's great. The peer support, that's great. Some strong technology, and then just pure operational advantages like great direct to manufacturer pricing. If I remember the statistics correctly, highly fragmented industry, right? Like the top 5 companies still are only the top 10% of market share, right? Or something like that. I mean,
You're there, only you gotta multiply the number that you said, this number, by 10. It's the top 50 flooring companies make
oh
up
my,
10% of the market. Yeah.
the top 50 companies make up 10% of the market. Unbelievable, right? That's just, I mean, the fragmentation is incredible. So great opportunity if you can come in with all those advantages that you just described, to have a chance at seizing that market share. Yeah, very good.
Absolutely, yes.
So let's take a few minutes about why you think this is a good business, right? So that,
Mhm.
there are some really attractive parts of this market, from a business investment standpoint, right? The fragmented landscape we talked about, a clear consumer trigger. It's predictable. We know people are buying flooring under certain conditions in life. You have this service. It's really hard to disrupt digitally. When you look at FCI specifically as a business model, not just the brand itself, but the business that you're in, what are the characteristics that you feel make it an attractive long-term investment for the right owner, for someone who can execute?
So I think there's a lot of the things that we talked about, and I'll bring them all into the answer. So
Yeah.
the market itself, it's highly fragmented. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to be, taken over by AI. If anything, AI is tools that we started using to separate us from our competitors who have no idea how to even implement AI into the business. I love that the business is a high ticket business that also has repeatable business. So while the average US homeowner replaces their floors every 7 years, the realtor that's selling a bunch of homes is referring flooring work every week. The restoration company that's remodeling homes after fires and floods, it's every week.
Hmm.
So there is the repeat business as well, high ticket,
Hmm.
that's repeat. It's not seasonal. The labor component in this business, I think, is just unmatched. And what I mean by that is every business has a labor component. If you own an ice cream store, you have to have high school kids calling out for prom on a Friday night. If you own a landscaping company, you've got day labor that you're responsible for. There's this who does the actual work component of
Hmm.
most, if not all, businesses. The thing that's great about the flooring business is because it's a high ticket business and it's a skilled installation. What you wind up needing is 3 to 5 professional flooring crews that you work with. And I
Okay.
say that again because it's not day labor. They are trained and skilled, and it's not plentiful. It's 3 to 5. Whereas in painting, you need 20 or 30 painters, or in window
Mm.
cleaning, you need 30 to 40 window cleaners. So it's skilled and it's not plentiful. Not that it's not work. It's obviously a role that our franchise owners got to play in the business. But as it
Sure.
relates to lots of other businesses out there, it's a big advantage. So that's for the industry itself. And then
Hmm.
as a franchise brand, I mean, between the technology, the vendor support, the training that we offer, the coaching that we offer, the years of experience that we offer, the fact that we're backed by a publicly traded company, these are all things like when you add it all up, I just don't know if there's a better combination out there, quite honestly. And I'm clearly
That's
unbiased, but
wonderful.
trying to be
You're
pragmatic.
allowed to be. That's it.
Yeah,
No, it's good. And as long as you got good reasons for it, you chose to be biased, right? You chose
fair,
to, you were
fair,
convinced yourself, right? So it's good.
absolutely yes.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. Thank you so much, Albert. We talked about the model, the customer, the ownership experience, a lot about the opportunity. So, someone who's listening to this conversation, they're either getting more interested or they're getting clear that it's not for them. Right? Both
Yep,
outcomes are valuable. But for
absolutely.
anybody who's genuinely intrigued and they want to do their own research about this, they want to start looking into it. I guess what's one thing you would want them to hold on to, or one thing to remember about Floor Coverings International?
Okay, so if someone were at this point to be interested, it means that they likely want and are attracted to building a big business. They're likely
Mhm.
attracted to the home services. Something about the home services has kind of got them interested. And they likely want to achieve all of the benefits of small business ownership, whether it's income and equity and lifestyle and having something of their own, right?
Mhm.
If those three things are truths, then I don't know how you can possibly find the better combination of the industry and the opportunity it presents, the franchisor and their ability to kind of grease the tracks to success, and then
Mhm.
also the mechanisms at which make it very attractive to do the things necessary to build something big that exists in this particular industry. Like I mentioned, not as much labor, market opportunity, things of that nature. So it's just the perfect combination, in my opinion. There are a lot of other businesses that people are very successful in and can build big businesses in. But if I'm looking at something in the home services to make really big, the Floor Coverings International franchisor is A plus, the industry is A plus. So why settle for anything less?
I love it. That was a great answer, Albert. Thank you. And thank you so much for taking time to answer my questions and explain a bit more about this opportunity. I love it. I'm proud to refer this opportunity to my clients when those are the things they're looking for. Floor Coverings International is on the short list. So thank you for being here today.
And we're grateful for that, Scott, and grateful for your time as well. Thank you.
So there it is, Floor Coverings International. The FCI model is built around an in-home experience that turns a purchase that most people find inconvenient into something personal, visual, and consultative. If this business feels worth exploring, I encourage you to approach it deliberately. FCI has been the number one ranked flooring franchise on the Entrepreneur Franchise 500 consistently, and brands with that kind of credibility and momentum attract serious interest. The candidates who move forward successfully are the ones who arrive prepared. I'll help you to become one of them. We'll confirm whether this model genuinely fits your background and your goals, clarify your financial position, and prepare you for a first conversation that really reflects well on you. If you're well positioned and committed, I'll personally introduce you to the brand. Book a no-cost 20-minute conversation and take the next step the right way. I'm Scott Elliott, and this has been another episode of Franchise Spotlight.